it's time to sit back and relax with your favorite drink. And listen. Well, you know what they say. It's easy to believe someone when they're telling you exactly what you want to hear. As we will discover in tonight's story, be wary of the bustling markets of Cup Mendou. So, when did all of this start? Well, I recall eating supper downstairs at the B-Inn's cantina when I began to feel this strange sense of discomfort. From there on, something was definitely wrong with me. If I remember correctly, I was sitting in that empty old rustic hall where I gobbled on a bowl of delicious pangolin soup and munched on a cut of generous grass bread. When, suddenly, a sense of vulnerability and shame began growing in me. Evidently, quenching my hunger did not appease this horrible sensation. I was beginning to feel as if I had no clothes, as if I was naked and repulsive to everyone around me. Yet, I can confirm, of course, I was dressed. Then and there, I was wearing my trademark sea blue wool tailcoat and my favorite iron chain belt around my comfortable brown linen pants. I will also mention my footwear. 2 vermilion-pointed leather poulain shoes, one purple, the other one green. Well, obviously I had more style than any other guest. Nonetheless, that sense of dread and vulnerability struck me even more when the cantina was beginning to get crowded. The cozy ambience of the hall, with its fireplace and calm instrumental music, it all did nothing to appease me. The more the guests found seats on the few tables available, the more I was suffering from growing anxiety and shame. I was even starting to feel paranoia as more and more guests started entering the cantina to take refuge from the upcoming storm by means of dark hot cocoa and spicy purple wine. At that moment, it was like my subconscious knew something terrible that was hidden in plain sight, something that I did not yet fully realize and the onlookers eventually would. I'd somehow spontaneously developed a fear of the public, all because my latent senses wanted to hide something compromising at all costs. Back at the robust, triangle-shaped wooden table and rough tree-bark chair, the strange feeling was beginning to take a physical toll on me. I was sweating profusely and about to have a horrible migraine when I preemptively left the charmful cantina. If I remember correctly, I left a tip. Obviously, leaving the table, I seemed normal to all the guests. No one batted an eye, since no one had a reason to. It's here in my room that I, fortunately and strangely, found immediately respite in the solitude it provided. Here, between these 4 walls, that horrible dread vanished on the spot. Immediately, from that incident at the cantina, I started to ponder on the nature of my newly developed condition and the timing of my first episode there. I've just realized something rather bizarre. Yes, deep within my most primitive instincts, I have a strong hunch. I definitely have, because yesterday I lost something that's unnatural to lose, and if people would notice, it would only be with terrible consequences for my integrity. And that's why I feel like some kind of monster in the company of onlookers. Still, I must quickly realize what it is, since the condition seems to constantly grow and will eventually lead to the deterioration of my life as an alchemist. I can't afford it, not after all the hard work I've put in and all the sacrifices I've made. I can't and I won't give up on my claim to the title of Master Alchemist. Just today I came to the realization that I can't spend time in public. Somehow it's now impossible for me to stroll through the wet market or visit any shop, cafe or library. I'm more uncomfortable in the company of people than a cat in cold water, and so now I am constrained to my budget room. Also, it seems that I can only feel confident in going outside when no one is looking or is around to notice. I feel the most comfortable during the night hours, but even then, when people are around, I must walk through poorly lit alleys and dark passages to fully feel, somehow, safe from their gaze. Indeed, I have developed an irrational fear and a bizarre condition. But why, and most importantly, how? How did all of this happen to me? Well, the answer has to lie in in the last 3 days I spent at Cup Mendou. Since it's here where this affliction struck me. What is it? A jinx from that witch? My ex? A curse from my rival, Hassim al-Hassar? Or have I died and I don't yet realize I'm a ghost? Whatever, I have to find out. If I write down all the latest events, I may delve deeper, more specifically into the darkest pits of my memory, and then make up a most detailed roadmap featuring all of the latest events and specificities. And this is how I hope to discover when and where this problem took root. Oh, just for a start, I suppose, it has to be related to my dealings in the dark arts, most precisely to my stay at Cup Mendou, the epicenter of the supernatural trade of this corner of the world. It's in my chamber's intimacy under a weak yellow light bulb that I'm writing this recollection. Also, I'm aware of the need to delve into my motivations and shady dealings to have a better chance to remember my mistakes or bad luck. I am fully aware that what afflicts me can't be unrelated to the mysterious, bizarre, and clandestine environment that I rubbed shoulders with during the last few days. It's the most logical premise to start this inner investigation. I arrived at Cup Mendou 3 days ago. If I'm not mistaken, the ship in which I travelled all the way from Darwin was named the Silver Colossus. It sailed under some Micronesian flag, and of course it had nothing to do with its glorious name. The ship was actually a rusty small fishing boat, plagued with carcasses of dead squids and the stench of rotten mollusks. I will confirm the crew was matching the setting. All the 12 fishermen aboard were all locals of the surrounding islands, and their antipathy was as striking as their uncommon features. They had thick necks, no lips, big, wide black eyes. Some of them even had webbed hands. Their captain, Thargo, was the only one that spoke English, yet it was incredibly difficult to understand his broken dialect. The only thing I recall understanding was that they all sailed north in search of potential wives. I also remember asking him how he prefers them, women. He replied with his unusual deep and guttural voice, "Fertile." Then all the crew croaked in unison, rather insidiously. Indeed, it was a long and tiring 2 weeks of maritime voyage. Nonetheless, I'd made it here safe and above all for a low price. Yet I'm quite disappointed they didn't invite me to the upcoming weddings. We were starting to get along. Anyways, I arrived in the early morning. I was in good physical and, most importantly, mental health, albeit very tired. So quickly I checked in at the nearest budget inn. Because I travelled lightly with only my leather shoulder bag as luggage, I didn't even need to unpack. Instead, I just took a rigorous shower and later bestowed my clothes to be meticulously washed. I gave the clear instruction to the maid that all had to be thoroughly cleaned and dried. It all had to be cleansed from the horrible, rotten fish stench. After a long, hot shower, I took a longer siesta until the late evening and early night. As you know, the Cup Mendou market actually only really opened at sunset, and I had to be mentally rested to haggle for the best quality and price for the various items I came to procure. So after a 10-hour sleep, I woke up from a bizarre dream just before the appearance of Venus in the night sky. Now, curiously, the presence of that particular planet allows the execution of certain forbidden rituals and consolidates dark pacts and potions. Well, too bad I didn't have my alchemic gear in hand. I could have advanced my magnum opus. Anyways, I got up off my bed and immediately noticed my clean clothes deposited on the dark wooden chair just beside the entrance door. I quickly fetched them to smell lavender with delicate notes of fish. I really don't know what I expected. I dressed up, grabbed my shoulder bag and exited my room, and then the inn. The atmosphere of the port was calm that moonless evening. The waters were tranquil and dark, and they reflected the many lights of the market and, more softly, the luminosity of the brightest constellations in the night sky. Yet the winds were delicate and fresh, and so it fueled my appetite. At that time, I started to become really, really hungry, especially after not eating all day. So my first stop at the Cup Mendou market had to be at Baba Yaga's pretzel shop. That evening the market was tight-packed with people. Strange and stranger individuals roamed the many alleys, where numerous small shops offered the miscellaneous to bizarre items and services. Either way, I crossed paths with many interesting locations that I would later visit. But before that, I had to eat something to reinvigorate my body. And this is how I ended up at Baba Yaga's pretzel shop, an artisanal pretzel shop where the original is the stuff of legends. And I asked for exactly that, the Baba Yaga's pretzel. It cost me $5, yet it was fully worth it. The way that veiled woman prepared it in front of the many curious onlookers above all was mastery and art. Using special ingredients and bizarre artifacts, the old woman was chanting rhythmic hymns while making and shaping the pretzel when, fully formed, blue flames engulfed it. She quickly submerged the burning pretzel in a pool of dark sauce. Then she carefully extracted the dark, shiny pretzel loop before sprinkling sea salt on it. The former was handed to me inside a folded newspaper page. Baba Yaga's original was more than just delicious. It was an otherworldly culinary experience. The dark, salty and crusty shell of the pretzel was hard and above all crunchy. Yet the inside was soft and chewy, filled with a special blend of melted goat cheese and local herbs. It was, indeed, an unforgettable meal. Every bite was a mix of yummy chewiness and the delicious cheese and hard crunchiness from the stiff, thick, burnt shell. Of course, I had to wash it down with some of the local homemade root beer. Indeed, really refreshing and invigorating stuff. After consuming the pretzel of a lifetime, I departed happily in the direction of the lesser-known Black Cat Bookshop, an old and antiquated bookstore, where it's still possible, even nowadays, to find ultra-rare specimens of forbidden or thought-lost grimoires. Indeed, this medieval underground bookstore is impressively vast, and it's filled to the brim with uncategorized tomes and books. Unfortunately, I was not there to stroll between the thousands of shelves in the hopes of finding some hidden gem like some of the people down here, but rather to procure myself a copy of The Book of Shadows, a study into the hypothetical abyssal alchemy by Ra-Hotep, a rather common tome. Nonetheless, I was in need of the rare Coptic version, for it is in the original language that the message is most precise and clear. The store owner, Amibus, did indeed have 2 copies of the book, yet he was stern on the price of 20 ounces of silver, a strain on my budget. Luckily, I managed to negotiate the price down to 14 ounces and a love potion of my creation. He reluctantly accepted, but, believe me, at that age, he will need it more than silver. After the transaction, I continued the special shopping in this vast, bustling market. There are very few places a man of my talents can find the rare substances needed to accomplish wonders or aberrations. One of those strange and less-known places is this open market with its concealed magical shops and underground hidden complexes. A market where only the initiated can find items, ingredients, books, and many other remarkable things. Well, if they know where to look. Anyways, until then, everything was normal and I felt great. So after acquiring the dark and small yet thick copy of the Book of Shadows, I made my way to the weird ingredients of Dr. Paul's, another secret shop only known by us, adepts of the occult. The shop is a special apothecary, one where we can replenish some of the necessary ingredients needed for different rituals and potions. Dr. Paul's is especially renowned for having items that should not exist. Ingredients like dragon scales, unicorn horns, mandrake roots, magical beans, and more that can only be found at the weird ingredients of Dr. Paul's. Consequently, I deviated from the main market road to explore a particular protruding dark alley. At the end of that dark and sinister corridor, a single green lamp was softly lit. I walked slowly in its direction. I finally discovered, under the green lamp, a dead-shut wooden door. I knocked on the wood 5 times and, after some time, it opened vertically in a tenebrous entrance. I entered without any hesitation. There I pushed another door, this one outwards. The inside of the weird ingredients of Dr. Paul's was like any normal grocery store, yet what was found on the shelves was anything but normal. I didn't even grab a shopping basket, since I was there only for a small bottle of blue mercury, 3 grams of fairy bone dust, and 2 portable 1-litre freedom tanks. Well, my heart almost stopped when I looked at the prices. Over 500 ounces of silver for everything, and the shop didn't even accept gold certificates. So I had to settle for a half-full bottle of blue mercury, 3 grams of fairy bone dust, and only 1 litre of cylinder filled with freedom. All that for a certificate of 400 ounces of silver. I still can't believe I paid that price. It had tripled in cost since my last visit. If I'd only known before investing in gold that 3 more Philosopher's Stones would be minted in secret, well, I'm now stuck with more than 500 kilos of that precious metal. Yet all the tradespeople are afraid of accepting it. Who can blame them? No one knows how much of it will be issued until the illegal stones are confiscated, voided, and the transgressor or transgressors executed. How did someone even manage to mint a Philosopher's Stone? The Higher Council has more than once assured it was impossible, nowadays at least, to mint 1, never mind 3. Well, the Council did also say that the value of gold is safe and backed by a supreme magical pact. Well, now we see how that all turned out. Now that I remember, back in the day, my good friend Andros told me something about gold being basically worthless, that I should invest in lead. I should have listened. I really should have. Well, back to the unwinding of my night. After exiting the alchemical shop, I felt normal. Indeed, nothing was wrong with me at the time. I still had hopes of acquiring all of the ingredients for what I'd come here for. Thus I continued my journey through the market optimistic, unaware of what would eventually await me. It was almost midnight, and I still had to make one last stop when a rather strange thing happened. Yes, on my way to the Dark Emporium, after opening and entering inside the first manhole I came by, I noticed the gaze of a strange figure upon me. Indeed, it was when I was about to close the steel entrance above me that I noticed the silhouette of a mysterious man, observing me from within the darkness of an obscure alley. He was thin and quite tall, having broad shoulders and wearing a hat. He was smoking what appeared to be a pipe. It lit in that intense orange-yellowish light. Only the chamber of a tobacco pipe can emanate deep within the gloom. Then I paid it no mind, but now I think it might have been a clue. Anyways, I jumped into the bottom of the sewers, closing the manhole above me. I landed on a narrow paving. It was just beside and perfectly just above a gargantuan and fast-moving river of grey water. The air was humid and the atmosphere murky. I was afraid of taking the wrong step and falling into the rapids, then being dragged into God knows where. So naturally, I was in a hurry to find the small bottle of limelight I kept inside my shoulder bag. I'd found it when something touched the tip of my right foot. Well, right away I stepped with strength on what I felt like a humanoid hand. Then I grabbed from my right pocket a small cube of Andromeda and dropped it inside the transparent flask of limelight. Instantly, an intense purple light illuminated the ancient sewer, and I saw a horrid, aquatic creature disappearing into the unknown depths of that grey water. I really don't know what I'd expected. I shook the small flask for quite some time, then it illuminated the direction of the nearest wall. A glowing green arrow and some words of the same neon colour were beginning to appear on the stone. The message was clear. This is the way, and the arrow pointed at it, to the Dark Emporium. Walking through the extensive subterranean complex was especially sinister. The tunnels and corridors blended and diverged sporadically. Some were small and modern, others colossal and more ancient than the city itself. Some even descended to unknown and unexplored abysses, depths I would rather never test. The way was long and tiring, yet my flask of limelight lit strenuously the way forward, revealing clear instructions under its then trembling purple light. Theoretically, I only had to follow the signs appearing regularly through my path to arrive safely at the destination. Yet in practice, things got spooky and dangerous rather quickly. Just half an hour into my journey, the once aggressive waters calmed down, all at once, leaving behind a vacuum of uncomfortable silence and black, impenetrable waters. Nonetheless, the aphonic ambience was quickly filled up with the sound of my footsteps and some other brisk marching noises. I stood still for what seemed like an eternity, to better understand the alarming occurrence, and it also stopped. I am fortunate that the sewer rats of Cup Mendou did not finish by catching up with me. I swear they are sometimes as big as alpha bulls and kidnap humans to be later to fuel their dark magic. It is said that their king is in a dark communion with an eldritch god, and so he must do his sinister biddings. In exchange for terrible powers, the Rat King has to offer life in front of a hideous altar, deep within the entrails of this city. Well, of course, it's all a legend, but the disappearances are true and a common occurrence here at Cup Mendou. Fortunately, I arrived in one piece to the infamous Dark Emporium. In that place were found truly forbidden artifacts and ingredients that are set for auction to the highest bidder. Down there, one can mostly find souls, spirits, and instinct spices, but banned books, forbidden maps, and much more are from time to time presented to bid on. I descended the helicoidal stone stairs into the main hall, where the bidding for souls was about to take place. It was quite a large room covered in green velvet and featured long wooden benches and a silver podium for the auctioneer, a black ethereal humanoid being with long arms and fingers. It took place in one of the first rows. Well, of course, I was expecting to secure a human soul. Any soul would do. I didn't really care about the rating. If it was from a low-life, good. From a homeless person, better. I just needed one, at least to attempt at crystallizing what would be, if successful, my greatest potion. I was really excited, yet the place was full of adepts of the occult and institutional investors. As is custom, the bidding started with the lesser souls, people who did not achieve their potential and succumbed to the pressures of this world. The pale auctioneer presented a weak, sickly flame to everyone, while the soul of a once alcoholic was contained inside an improvised support, a rusty pickle jar. I was about to bid when I heard him set the asking price, 500 kilos of lead for a sub-prime soul. It was around 2 a.m. when I entered the nearest saloon. I was heartbroken after watching my great future fade away in front of my eyes, not having the resources to chase it, to complete what had taken me decades to research, years to prepare, and seconds to fade away. It was a dreadful feeling. Indeed, without a human soul, I could never finish my grand potion and lay claim to the title of Master Alchemist. So I was drinking the cheapest whiskey inside a smoker's saloon when I was unexpectedly approached by quite an African gentleman. Well dressed and with a dark skin tone, he sat beside me, looked at me and ordered my drink. Then he stared into his half-empty glass before taking a big sip. "So, you two. It is really impossible to acquire a soul in this market. I might as well give up on voodoo and start selling hot dogs on the beach. It's much less demanding and you don't risk your life." Well, I was startled by the approach, but agreed with him. Yes, it is difficult. But how can you give up on something that you've been working on your life to achieve? I feel like it's really difficult. I tried to take a sip of my own, but my glass was empty. "I'm sorry, man. I did not know your art was your life. Me, I only do voodoo recreationally, so I can't imagine what you're going through. By the way, my name is Marcos Matos." He shook my hand. "I'm a voodoo man, novice magician, and I animate birthday parties on weekends. Here's my card." He literally gave me a card. The Jack of Hearts. Oh, Marcos was a really peculiar individual. He had several golden teeth and exposed chicken bones in his dreadlocks. Yet he was wearing a quite flamboyant outfit. A yellow and green suit with bronze snake patterns on the blazer. If it makes you feel better, destiny works in mysterious ways, so if you are to get a soul, you will one day get one. Yet how you get it is a whole other story. Look at me. Before all of this, I was living in the UK. I was born and raised there, but one day I decided to have my vacations at the sunny Caribbean beaches. But on my way to Bermuda, the plane unexpectedly had to do an emergency landing in Haiti. And the rest is history. He said, smiling, and then he ordered another drink for me and himself. The guy had had quite an interesting life. His stories were rich in adventure and intrigue. Around 3 a.m. we exited the bar, heading to the market for a last pretzel, when something unusual happened to us. We were already talking about going on a trip together to the Vatican City in search of cheaper souls, when a strange individual approached us. "Excuse me, gentlemen, did one of you drop this?" He showed us a black leather portfolio. Well, Marcos and I each denied ownership of the latter when the guy opened it to look at the contents. He exposed many colorful and peculiar pages, soul contracts to be claimed at the Dark Emporium. Marcus and I looked at each other and smiled. Destiny really did work in mysterious ways. Marcus then said decisively, "Well, having a closer look, yes, it is ours. We couldn't see it that well in the dark, so excuse me." Marcus was about to grab the portfolio when the tour guide quickly hid it behind his back and said, "Gentlemen, I know it is not yours, nor is it mine, but this quantity of souls is quite large. It probably belongs to someone shady. I say we return this to the authorities." Well, the tall man was indeed initiated in the dark arts. He knew what he was talking about, since he knew the importance and the look of soul contracts. That said, Marcos did not relent. "How would we even know you actually grew a conscience and you will actually return it to the owner, now that you know the value inside the portfolio?" "Well, at least I did not lie about my claim to it. I am a man of principles." The man responded angrily, like as if his honor was hurt. I wanted to propose that we should split the contracts in equal parts, but I didn't want to look bad in front of my new acquaintance. After some deliberation, Marcus looked to me and said, "Look, this is a large sum of souls. If someone had lost it, he would already have reported it. Yet we just met, so it is normal to believe that if we leave you to return it, you might just keep the souls and leave us with nothing. So I propose that someone goes to the authorities to see if someone really has lost it. If no one has reported it and everything is okay, then we split it into 3 parts, no questions asked." Immediately I agreed with him. The tall man seemed reluctant at first, but he nodded. He had a severe look accentuated by his pointed goatee and was dressed in an all-black robe that somehow matched his green fedora. "So, who will go?" "I will go," said Marcos. He was about to part from us when he stopped and asked, "And, how do I know you'll not split it in 2 and leave me like a fool? No disrespect intended, friend, but I really just met you a couple of hours ago." I understood his concerns, but the tall man immediately proposed a solution. "Well, it so happens I am an archmage, and I have a solution for all of us. It is to form a magical pact." He dipped his left index inside a large purple mixture. Then he drew an ancient rune on the palm of his right hand. A strange and old rune. Nonetheless, I swear I'd seen this somewhere before lately. "We can agree on this to secure all of our interests. I will inquire to find out if someone truly has lost this portfolio. I will even let you keep the portfolio if you agree to a handshake as a guarantee. So if you run away with the souls, I at least will be able to track you down and carry out justice upon you." I was about to say no, but Marcus, with excitement, agreed for both of us, and I reconsidered my stance. Indeed, I needed souls, yet one should never agree blindly into a pact. Fair enough. We agreed, me and Marcus, and we shook the tall man's hand. He had the both of us repeat an unknown to me until then spell, and that was it. The tall man tipped his fedora and departed. Half an hour later, just when Marcos and I were starting to worry, he reappeared, with a living black goat trailing behind him and a happy grin on his face. Since he'd probably bought the goat at the wet market, he obviously had good news to share. I have talked to the authorities. They say no one has, yet, reported a lost object matching the characteristics of the portfolio. So, if in 3 days' time no one passes by with a valid claim, it is to us to dispose of the findings. Of course, I did not mention what the portfolio contained, but if anyone passes by asking for a leather portfolio, we will be notified. I was excited. Marcus was about to jump with happiness. Yet there was one last problem. Of course, now we stand before the conundrum of who will keep guard of the souls till then. It is why I have devised an instrument that will help us ensure that the keeper will be faithful to his task. He then put forward the peaceful black goat. It was staring at me with curiosity, and then bleated. The one that keeps the portfolio must keep an insurance ritual. Of course it can't be me because I am the guarantor of the ritual. Insurance rituals. It was the first time I'd heard of those. I was about to ask when the tall man took out a hidden dagger and handed it to Marcos. Oh, no way. I don't feel good about killing animals. I'm vegan. Come on, friend, you should be the one keeping it safe. I trust you more than this random dude. You should have the portfolio, but you must give us some reassurance, some collateral so we can sleep with a peace of mind. Well, it wasn't the first time I'd sacrificed an animal. Yet a black goat was something else entirely, and offering this specific is usually reserved for some pretty messed up stuff. I was reluctant, but then Marcos pressured me. He told me to hurry before someone noticed. Indeed, the sun was about to rise, and people might see 3 weird men with a black goat. Rightfully, the residents might call the police. It was a risky and difficult decision to make with no time. Nevertheless, I needed those souls. The tall man seemed trustworthy, and Marcos Matos was my friend. Finally, I did it. It was easier than I thought. After all, I am an experienced alchemist and a pretty good cook. Immediately, I was handed the closed portfolio, and we all agreed to meet at the Lost Saloon, where there we would split the souls, if no one declared a similar lost item. Afterwards, I walked alone in the direction of my inn. It was early in the morning when I hid the portfolio under my bed, and I took a shower to wash the blood off my body. Subsequently, I slept until the late evening. When I woke up, I still couldn't believe what had happened last night. Immediately, I checked under the bed to see if the portfolio was in the right place, and indeed it was. It was all real. I wasn't dreaming, and somehow fate had smiled upon me. I truly had the universe conspire in my favor. I might have a great destiny to accomplish after all. Nonetheless, later that evening, at the B Inn's cantina, was the beginning of what seems to be my decadence, when after eating a delicious pangolin soup, my psyche started to irreversibly degenerate, when a feeling of unending dread invaded my senses and shattered my character. So that sums up my journey through Cup Mendou. Yet I don't see where it could have gone wrong. Everything went according to plan, hell, even better than expected. Nonetheless, now I find myself cornered, a prisoner of some subconscious fear. Fear of what? I don't know, but I'm scared of people. I experience a dread when they stare in my direction, when they look at me with curiosity. How bizarre. The light is... No. It can't be possible. Wait, I've just grasped what's wrong. How stupid of me to realize it just now. The fact that I have no shadow. No wonder I was all this time subconsciously scared of company. My subconscious knew I was missing something serious and that I was in danger. No wonder I felt safe under the cover of obscurity, where no light could betray my abnormality, where I could conceal the aberration of my presence from the average onlooker. If someone had noticed, I'd be suffering the consequences of being the living proof of an untamable reality. It would be the Holy Inquisition all over again. Now that I have become a sight that breaks all of their preconceived ideas of nature and reality, well, I am now in danger. As soon as they find out, I will have to be disposed of. It's no coincidence that we adepts of the occult hide our art, practices, and power from the overwhelming fear and jealousy of the mob. Salem was just one of the many examples of how extraordinary people are torn down by mindless societies and profane priests, since people destroy what they can't tame or understand. Oh, good thing my instincts are still sharp, and I was guided to the safety of my quiet room. Too bad it's impossible to regrow a shadow. One must wear only their own. Nevertheless, because human shadows are used to fuel some dark summoning rituals, they are a precious commodity for the initiated. Of course, like for the souls, not all shadows are created the same. But how did I lose mine? I'll have to ask Marcus if he noticed something wrong with me. Also, the tall man should know how to... Oh, God. Now that I think about it, I swear that he was the same tall man, the one following me since the weird ingredients of Dr. Paul's. It was him smoking that tobacco pipe, and he made me perform the bizarre magical ritual to secure our agreement on the portfolio. Wait. I have to check something. I just opened it. The souls are not there. Instead, I found a stack of large Jack of Hearts cardboard cards. Oh, Marcus was in on it too, and I thought we could have become good friends. God, I just got conned like a novice. They both lured me into an unknown ritual, so I would willingly transfer my shadow. They probably took it the moment I sacrificed that goat. I really don't know what I expected. Oh, the convenient souls, the strange rune, the spell, and that black goat. They played on my desperation and greed to steal my dreams away. However, they made one big mistake. They stole from the alchemist, and he'll get back his shadow. And when he does, he will claim it with interest. Those poor souls. They're about to experience the extreme extent of my glorious powers and intellect. And through my revenge, I will have no pity, nor will I relent. I will part today. No need to pack. I'll get those poor devils and reclaim what is rightfully mine. There's something about that one that I really enjoyed. What did you think of that? Thoughts, feelings, anything you want to say in the comment section below the video. And as ever, I will do my best to join in the conversation as much as I can. Well, that was another one from Dr. Creepen's Vault, the subreddit I set up so you could share your stories with me, and I could read them all for you. And I'm going to say still about 70-80% of the stories I read do come from there, so if you've written something and you'd like me to read it, well, that's the place to put it. Can't guarantee that I read 100% of the stories that are left there, but I do my best to get through, well, to do as many of them as I can. So, there you go. Wednesday already. Another podcast coming out tomorrow evening, getting more and more popular. Put something over on the Patreon today. Thanks again to all my dear Patreons for your support. Really does mean a hell of a lot to me. If you feel like bunging me $1 or $2, it'd be very much appreciated. I do some exclusive stories once a month and put a few other bits and pieces over there as well for everybody who supports me. So thanks once again. Well, that's it for one evening, but yep, be back again tomorrow with a podcast. I'm back again here on Friday with something pretty special, I'm sure. So, my dear friends, until next time, very sweet dreams, and bye-bye. Thank you so much for taking the time to listen to this story today. Really means a lot to me and to the author of the story, of course. Well, if you want to know more about me, I'm pretty much everywhere on social media. You can find me on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram. You can download my music on SoundCloud. I've got a Patreon if you feel like. Throw me $1 or $2. Very much appreciated. And of course, on Reddit, I have a place where you can leave stories if you want me to read one that you've written. Well, hoping to see you all again very soon. Till then, sweet dreams, and bye-bye.